welcome back. This next video is probably going to be over this series of a few days. I've got an hour here and there to head out to the garage and take care of a few things. So tonight I'm just out here for an hour or two. You've already seen a little bit of a time lapse, but let me show you what I did. Okay, I pulled the steering column out. It's going to be easier for me to pin out all the stuff on the steering column and figure out what's what for rewiring everything. So it also made it easier to pull a bunch of these wires out. I got a bunch of it sitting over on that side, on the passenger side, and a few of this I still need to is disconnected, so I can throw it over there. And I need to do some research and figure out what this thing is. I think it's just a buzzer, like for the door opening, but you know, the door chime or something. But I need to do some research there. There's some sort of part number on there that I took a picture of. It's like 263, but that's not long enough. All right, let me show you the steering column a little bit here. A couple things I'm looking to do with this steering column. One, I like to remove the tilt function altogether. I don't use it, and it actually creates some slop in the steering column. So I'm going to tear this apart and see if I can figure out how to lock the tilt. It's pretty solid. I also want to remove the ignition lock. I mean, I want to leave the key in for ignition, but so that it doesn't lock the column, you know, from being able to be turned. There's really not a good reason for that as far as I can tell. This, I need to figure out what this is. This here is going to be high beam, low beam switch. I know what that is already. So I think this is actually the steering column lock right here. But again, if someone wants to comment down below and tell me what that is, just to verify. And then I need to pin out all these wires. Things that will remain probably will be going to keep the hazard light switch functional, and going to keep the ignition functional, so at least I can, you know, turn it on to accessory mode and then start the car. Going to leave the high beam, low beam functionality working, as well as left and right blinkers and the windshield wipers. There is also cruise control functionality. Obviously that won't be necessary, as well as windshield washer fluid. That one doesn't apply anymore either, so I don't have to worry about those. So I need to trace down with a multimeter what all the connection points are down there on that connector, so that I can wire it in and keep the functionality I want still functional. Well, that didn't go as planned last night. I finished off feeling kind of frustrated. It was one step forward and two, maybe three steps backwards. I mean, not a huge deal in the end, but that steering column's definitely not going to work. After a little more research, it's probably best that I move to a steering column that's meant for racing anyway. As you could see from the video, that ignition switch is almost falling out of the steering column. Getting in there to fix the tilt looks like it's going to be pretty involved, and things were just kind of falling apart as I was taking the steering column apart. So we're just going to fabricate one that's meant for the car, probably be 15-20 pounds lighter, and should be stiffer and better in the end anyway. So that project's getting ditched. I'll have to rig up all of the turn signals and headlights and horn and stuff on a different switch system. I found a switch that's, I think, meant for Kubota, so I've got that on order and we'll be wiring that in shortly. Well, I got a ton of wires cleaned up. Still have a little bit up there to address, but I kind of want to figure out where some of these wires are going to first. And I'm waiting on the assembly that's going to handle all my blinkers and headlights and stuff to arrive. Hopefully that'll arrive by the end of the week, and then I can hopefully get a lot of that cleaned up and ready to go. But back here, all this is cleaned up now. I got all of my wires, they're labeled with the little blue labels down there on the end. So once I get the assembly that's going to handle the blinkers, I can wire all this in. I'll have to wire in a relay back here for a fuel pump. I picked up a new fuel pump. It's a big boy. Picked it up used off of Facebook Marketplace, but it should be able to handle E85 with the power I'm going to put in it. And for testing out these wires here, figuring out what was blinkers, I pulled out this battery I've been sitting on for, I don't know, 6-8 months. It is super light. It's a lithium, NOCO lithium battery, listed at 700 amps. And I know they're not necessarily equal, but the one that was in it was at 510 cold or 630 at 32 degrees. So the 700 should be better. Not too worried about cold cranking up, since I don't really drive this kind of car when it's super cold. So I don't need it to start at 0 degrees. So I hooked that up and then just jumped wires so I could see which lines were my blinkers and brake lights and things like that. So got that sorted out. Next, I think I'm gonna move on to the brake lines up front. I have the fittings I think I need, so we'll get that sorted out and the brake lines squared away. Got the fittings I needed today, well, some of them, so I was able to get that T in there from the front, and so that's now routed down around to the front brake lines. The rear is going to the back. Started working on that and found I need a couple more T's, or not T's, but a couple more fittings. So back to the store to get some more fittings so I can get that wrapped up. This evening I've got a few hours out in the garage. I'm kind of going to be listening to Hillsdale College's Constitution 101 course while I work out here. I got a few things in that I'll use for the wiring. First, I think I mentioned this earlier, but that steering column isn't going to work, so I rerouted. I picked up this ignition system off Amazon. It wasn't bad, so I think it was less, like $15 or something. So I'm going to wire that in to a couple of main relays, and then picked up a few more relays to do the fuel pump and the water pump up front. And then it's still in the package, but I have this fuse box. I've got another one on the way, so I think I'll have one set up for accessories and one set up for ignition/running. And the start will obviously only drive the starter. Need to redo some of the ends to fit that NOMO battery, because it has different style terminals, so some of the terminal ends will get redone. And then if I have time, I may dive into the fuel system. Started picking up, the fuel line's going to be all 8 AN up to the front, and then 6 AN return. So picked up a pre-filter, post pump filter is on the way still, so I might throw details on a lot of this stuff down in the description. The other thing I did was pick up an evap canister. This was the original evap canister that was in the Corvette when I took it apart. I'm trying to keep the gas smell down in my garage a little bit. I'll be running E85, so it'll probably be less of a problem. But I picked up this. This is an evap canister off of a Miata. Much smaller. Don't know if it'll do the job, but I'm gonna give it a shot. since it's probably 5 pounds lighter than this thing and takes up a lot less space. So for packaging, it should fit a little better, and I'm hoping it keeps the gas smell down in the garage. So we'll see if I get to the fuel system stuff or not. Okay, it's almost 11 o'clock, so I'm about done for the evening, but I figured I'd cover what I did here a little bit. I didn't actually get the battery mounted because I figured out that that mount really wasn't going to work. It was still moving too much, but I did get it connected up. It's just kind of sitting down there right now. And I know it's a black wire, but it goes back to a cutoff switch in the back here. And then that red wire goes around up the side, and I'll get this all routed pretty event later, but it's going into a distribution block, so the starter will come off of that, and anything else that needs power directly from the battery without going through some sort of relay, that should be pretty much just the starter. And then we have two different relays. These are, I think, 150 amp relays, and one of them will get turned on in the accessory mode, and the other one will get turned on when the car is running. So I hooked up this guy here for accessory, and that power heads over to this fuse block, and then I wired in the radio just because I wanted to see, make sure everything was working. So The soundbar in the back actually is not wired up yet, but what you can see and probably hear is, let's see here. Let's see if I can put this down here for a second. Is now, with this will get mounted when I'm finished, but I can go into accessory mode. You can hear it click. Let me do it again. Hear it click. And the radio is on. Off. On. Beautiful. So now I have the basic format. I can start wiring it in all the other things that need to come on, both in accessory mode. I'm waiting for the other fuse block. I only got one. The other one I ordered is 12 fuses, so that accommodates 6, and then full run mode will have 12 fuses in it. So I don't think I'll actually use all that, but once it arrives here in the next few days, I'll be able to pretty much wire everything in that needs to get wired in. That's the hope anyway. I think this will probably about do it for this set of videos. It's been spanning a few nights, so probably get this one published soon and start working on some other stuff. So thanks for watching.